Alexandra Torres sighed as she checked her phone one more time. She was already 5 minutes early for this blind date she never wanted in the first place. Sitting in her wheelchair in front of the restaurant, she wondered for the 10th time why she had let Diane, her assistant, talk her into this. "You need a life outside that office," Diane had insisted last week, standing firmly in front of Alexandra's desk with that look that meant she wouldn't take no for an answer. "My friend's brother is really nice. He owns that new restaurant downtown and he's a single dad. Just one date. What's the worst that could happen?" Alexandra had given in, mostly to get Diane to drop the subject. At 34, Alexandra had built her tech company from a tiny startup to a multi-million-dollar business with over 50 employees. Work was her life, her passion, her safe place. Dating, that was complicated even before the car accident 3 years ago that put her in this wheelchair. She glanced down at her outfit, a dark blue dress that complemented her olive skin and dark hair. She had actually spent time getting ready tonight, something she rarely did anymore. Why bother impressing someone who would probably just see the chair anyway? The taxi driver had been kind enough to help her out with her wheelchair, and now she sat watching people walk by, some glancing at her with that familiar look of pity she had grown to hate. 3 years was enough time to get used to the wheels, but not enough time to get used to how people looked at her differently. Her phone buzzed. A message from Diane. "Good luck tonight. Michael is a great guy. Just be yourself." Be herself, right? Alexandra wasn't even sure who that was anymore. CSO Alexandra was confident, strong, unstoppable. But dating Alexandra? That woman disappeared the day her car rolled over on that rainy highway. She checked her reflection in her phone screen. Her long dark hair was pulled back neatly, her makeup subtle but flattering. She had always been pretty. High cheekbones, expressive brown eyes, and a smile that her father used to say could light up the darkest room. But she rarely smiled like that anymore. "Alexandra?" A deep voice called. She looked up to see a tall man approaching. Michael Parker. He had to be. Diane had described him, tall with kind eyes. That fit. He was wearing a blue button-down shirt and dark jeans. Not too formal, not too casual. His brown hair was slightly messy, like he'd run his hands through it a few times, and he had a short, neat beard. But what caught Alexandra's attention were indeed his eyes, warm and a surprising shade of green. "Yes, that's me," she replied, straightening her posture. "You must be Michael." She waited for it, that moment when his eyes would drop to her wheelchair, when his expression would change to awkward pity or discomfort. It always happened, always. But something different happened instead. Michael smiled, a genuine smile that reached those green eyes, and he extended his hand. "It's great to meet you, Alexandra. I hope you weren't waiting long." No lingering stare at her wheelchair, no awkward shuffle. Just a normal greeting, as if she were any other woman. "Not at all," she said, shaking his hand. His grip was firm but gentle. "I got us a table inside," he said. "I hope you like this place. Even though I own a restaurant myself, sometimes it's nice to eat somewhere where I'm not the one worrying about every little detail." As he spoke, he naturally fell into step beside her wheelchair, not behind pushing, which she hated, or awkwardly ahead. Just alongside, like they were walking together. The hostess greeted them with a smile. "Right this way, please." Alexandra followed, conscious of the eyes that always followed her chair. The restaurant was busy, filled with the gentle hum of conversation and the clink of cutlery against plates. The smell of good food filled the air, garlic, herbs, freshly baked bread. To her surprise, they were led to a perfect table, not stuffed in a corner where her chair wouldn't be in the way, not prominently displayed like she was on exhibit, but a normal table by a window with a beautiful view of the city lights. More importantly, the chair opposite her had been removed already, leaving a space that was just right for her wheelchair. Michael must have noticed her surprise. "I called ahead," he said quietly as he took his seat. "Hope that's okay. I just wanted to make sure you'd be comfortable." Alexandra felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, a flutter of genuine interest. Not because Michael was handsome, though he certainly was, but because of the thoughtfulness behind that simple action. He had considered her needs without making a big deal about it. "That's very thoughtful," she said. "Most people either ignore the wheelchair completely or make such a fuss about accommodations that it becomes embarrassing." Michael smiled, unfolding his napkin. "My sister uses a wheelchair sometimes. She has MS, good days and bad days. She'd kill me if I made a big deal about it. He shrugged. It's just basic courtesy, right? Alexandra relaxed slightly. That explained it. He wasn't just being polite. He actually understood. Your sister sounds like someone I'd get along with, Alexandra said with a small smile. Oh, Lisa would love you. She's actually a big fan of your company. When Diane mentioned your name, Lisa nearly fell out of her chair. No pun intended. He chuckled. She uses your company's accounting software for her business. Really? What does she do? She's a freelance graphic designer. Works from home most days. Says your software is the only one that doesn't make her want to throw her computer out the window. Alexandra laughed, a genuine laugh that surprised her. That's going on our testimonial page. A waiter appeared with menus and water. Can I get you something to drink? Wine, Michael suggested. They have a great selection here. Just water for me, Alexandra said. I don't mix alcohol with my medications. She said it matter-of-factly. No point hiding it. Michael nodded, unfazed. Water for me too, then. She raised an eyebrow. You don't have to skip wine on my account. I'm driving, he said simply. Plus, I've got early morning dad duty tomorrow. My kids are early risers, especially on weekends. How many children do you have? Alexandra asked, genuinely curious. 2. Ben is 8 and Lily just turned 6. His face softened when he mentioned them, the way parents' faces often do. From his jacket pocket, he pulled out his wallet and showed her a photo of 2 children with his same green eyes. The boy had a missing front tooth and freckles across his nose. The little girl had pigtails and a mischievous smile. They're adorable, Alexandra said, and meant it. They're trouble, Michael replied with a proud grin, but the best kind. As they looked at the menus, Alexandra felt herself relax more. The conversation flowed easily as they ordered. Alexandra chose the salmon, Michael the steak. They talked about his restaurant, a cozy Italian place he'd opened 4 years ago, and about her company's newest project, a software suite for small businesses. How did you get into the restaurant business? Alexandra asked as their food arrived, beautifully plated and smelling delicious. Michael's expression changed slightly, a shadow crossing his face. It wasn't my original plan. I was actually in corporate finance for years. He took a sip of water. After my wife died, I needed a change. Cooking had always been my stress relief, so I took a crazy leap and opened the restaurant. I'm sorry about your wife, Alexandra said softly. Michael nodded. Cancer. It was quick, 6 months from diagnosis too. He cleared his throat. The kids were so young. Ben barely remembers her and Lily was just a baby. Alexandra felt a pang in her chest. His loss made her own struggles seem smaller somehow. That must have been incredibly difficult, she said. It was. Still is sometimes, Michael admitted. But we're doing okay. The restaurant gives me flexible hours to be with the kids and we've got a good routine now. He smiled again, pushing away the sadness. What about you? How did you end up running your own tech company? As Alexandra began to tell him about her journey from computer science major to startup founder, she realized something surprising. For the first time in years, she was on a date where she wasn't thinking about her wheelchair. She wasn't calculating every word, wondering if the person across from her was judging her or pitying her. Instead, she was just Alexandra, talking, laughing, sharing stories with an interesting man who seemed genuinely interested in her as a person. When dessert came, a rich chocolate cake they decided to share, Alexandra found herself not wanting the evening to end. Michael was easy to talk to, funny without trying too hard and refreshingly honest. There was no game playing, no awkward pauses. Your assistant Diane and my sister Lisa are probably texting each other right now comparing notes, Michael said with a laugh. They've been trying to set us both up forever, Alexandra smiled. I'll have to thank Diane on Monday, though I'll never hear the end of it if she knows the date went well. So it's going well? Michael asked, his eyes twinkling. Good to know. Alexandra felt herself blush slightly. I've enjoyed myself, she admitted. More than I expected to. As they finished dessert, Alexandra realized she had been so engaged in their conversation that 3 hours had passed. The restaurant was quieter now, many of the tables empty. I should probably get home, she said reluctantly. I have an early conference call tomorrow. Michael nodded. Of course. Let me get the check. He signaled the waiter. We should split it, Alexandra suggested. Michael shook his head. Not a chance. I invited you, remember? You can get the next one. His eyes met hers with a cue. Stein in them next one. The possibility hung in the air between them. Deal, Alexandra said with a smile. As they left the restaurant, Michael walked beside her again. Outside, the night air was cool and clear. Stars peeked through the city's light pollution. Can I call you a cab? Michael offered. I already ordered one, Alexandra said, holding up her phone. It should be here in 2 minutes. They waited together in comfortable silence. Thank you for tonight, Alexandra said finally. I had a really nice time. So did I, Michael replied. He hesitated, then added, I'd really like to see you again, Alexandra. Maybe next weekend, if you're free. The cab pulled up before she could answer. Michael opened the door and waited as she maneuvered her wheelchair into position. The driver got out to help, but Alexandra was already smoothly transferring herself from chair to car seat, a movement she had perfected over years of practice. Michael folded her wheelchair with surprising competence and placed it in the trunk. Before closing her door, he leaned down slightly. I'll call you tomorrow, if that's okay. Alexandra looked at him. This man who had seen past her wheelchair to the woman she sometimes forgot she still was. I'd like that, she said. As the cab pulled away, Alexandra looked back to see Michael still standing there watching her leave. For the first time in 3 years, she felt a flutter of something new taking root inside her. Not pity, not awkwardness, not the careful distance she had grown used to. Hope. That's what it was. And it felt both terrifying and wonderful. The restaurant was busy for a Thursday evening. Alexandra rolled her wheelchair through the door, immediately scanning the space for Michael. It had been a week since their first date, and after several long phone calls they had agreed to meet again, this time at his restaurant. Alexandra, Michael's voice called from across the room. He was standing by the kitchen doors wearing black pants and a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. An apron was tied around his waist and his face lit up when he saw her. Alexandra felt that now familiar flutter in her stomach as she navigated between tables toward him. The restaurant was warm and inviting. Soft lighting from hanging fixtures, walls painted a deep red, and the rich smell of Italian spices filling the air. Classical music played softly in the background, just loud enough to hear without interrupting conversation. You found the place okay? Michael asked, leaning down to kiss her cheek. The gesture felt natural, not forced. My driver is excellent, Alexandra said with a smile. Your restaurant is beautiful. Michael grinned, looking around proudly. Thanks. We're not fancy, but we aim for comfortable and authentic. He gestured toward a table in a small alcove near a window. I saved you the best seat in the house. Good view, but away from the main traffic flow. Once again, Alexandra was struck by his thoughtfulness. The table was perfect, not tucked away like she needed to be hidden, but positioned so she wouldn't have people constantly bumping into her chair. A chair had already been removed to make space for her wheelchair. I'm impressed, she said as she positioned herself at the table. Most restaurant owners I know would be too busy to think about these details. Michael shrugged. My sister eats here twice a week. I learned the hard way what works and what doesn't. His green eyes twinkled. Plus, I really wanted to impress you. A waiter appeared with water and menus. The usual wine, boss? He asked Michael. Just water for me tonight, Tony. I'm driving later, Michael replied. Alexandra? Water is fine, she said. When the waiter left, Michael leaned forward. I hope you don't mind eating here. I wanted to show you my world, and this place is a big part of it. I'm glad you invited me, Alexandra said honestly. I've been curious about it since you mentioned it. Though I have to ask, aren't you supposed to be working? Michael laughed. The beauty of being the boss. I've got a great team in the kitchen tonight, led by my head chef, Carlo. He's been with me since we opened, and he runs a tighter ship than I do. As if on cue, a stocky man with salt and pepper hair poked his head out from the kitchen. Spotting Michael, he made his way over. So this is why you're abandoning us tonight, the chef said with a thick Italian accent, eyeing Alexandra with friendly curiosity. Now I understand. Carlo, this is Alexandra, Michael said. Alexandra, meet Carlo, the real talent behind this place. Don't believe him, Carlo said, shaking Alexandra's hand. He created every recipe on our menu. I just follow his instructions, mostly. He winked at Alexandra. I'll make you something special tonight. No menu needed. Before either of them could respond, Carlo was heading back to the kitchen. He seems wonderful, Alexandra said. He is. More like family than an employee, Michael replied. He helped me get through some of the darkest days after Rachel, my wife, passed away. Alexandra nodded, appreciating his openness about his loss. How long ago was that? 4 years now, Michael said, his expression softening. The restaurant was actually her idea, believe it or not. Before she got sick, she always said I should quit the corporate world and open my own place. Said life was too short not to follow your dreams. He smiled sadly. She was right about that. She sounds like she was very wise, Alexandra said gently. She was. Michael took a sip of water. But enough about the past. Tell me more about your week. Did you close that deal you mentioned? Alexandra smiled, impressed that he'd remembered their phone conversation about a potential client. We did. Signed the contract yesterday. It's our biggest account yet. That's amazing, Michael said, his enthusiasm genuine. We should celebrate. He signaled to the waiter. Tony, bring us a bottle of the Prosecco. The good one from the back shelf. You don't have to, Alexandra started. I want to, Michael said firmly. It's not every day I get to toast a business genius. Alexandra laughed, shaking her head. Hardly a genius. Just stubborn enough not to quit when things get tough. That's part of genius, Michael insisted. My grandfather used to say success is 1% inspiration, 99% refusing to give up. The Prosecco arrived and Michael poured 2 glasses. He raised his, to stubborn, successful women who make the world better. Alexandra touched her glass to his, and to restaurants that feel like home. As they sipped the bubbly wine, the first course arrived, a small plate of bruschetta with fresh tomatoes and basil. Carlo's putting on a show tonight, Michael said with a grin. Usually he only does the full tasting menu for food critics. Should I be flattered or terrified? Alexandra asked, taking a bite of the bruschetta. The flavors exploded in her mouth. Ripe tomatoes, fragrant basil, garlic, and the perfect amount of salt, all on perfectly toasted bread. Oh my God, that's amazing. Just wait, Michael promised. The meal that followed was indeed spectacular. Delicate handmade pasta in a light cream sauce with fresh peas, perfectly grilled sea bass with lemon and herbs, and a selection of roasted vegetables that even made Alexandra, who usually avoided vegetables, want seconds. Throughout dinner, they talked about everything: work, family, movies they loved, places they wanted to visit. Alexandra found herself sharing stories she hadn't told anyone in years, about her childhood dreams of becoming an astronaut, about the coding competition she won in college that gave her the confidence to start her company, about the fears she'd faced after her accident. The hardest part wasn't learning to use the wheelchair, she admitted, as they shared a tiramisu for dessert. It was dealing with how differently people treated me. Friends who suddenly spoke to me like I was a child, colleagues who assumed I couldn't handle my job anymore, dates who saw me as some kind of inspiration porn instead of just a woman. Michael listened intently, not interrupting. When she finished, he nodded. I can't pretend to understand completely, but I see it with my sister. The assumptions people make, he hesitated. Can I ask what happened? The accident, I mean. You don't have to tell me if you don't want to. Alexandra appreciated the way he asked, giving her the space to refuse. But somehow with Michael talking about it felt okay. It was raining, she said. I was driving home late from the office, working too much as usual. A truck lost control on the highway, swerved into my lane. She took a deep breath. My car rolled 3 times before hitting the guardrail. The doctor said I was lucky to be alive. My spine was damaged at T10, that's around here. She indicated a spot on her lower back. Complete paralysis from just below my waist. Michael reached across the table and took her hand. His touch was warm, comforting. I spent 6 months in rehab learning how to live again, Alexandra continued. How to dress myself, how to get in and out of the chair, how to drive with hand controls. The physical stuff was hard but straightforward. The emotional adjustment, she shrugged. That's still a work in progress. Thank you for telling me, Michael said softly. For trusting me with that. Alexandra looked at him, really looked at him. In the soft light of the restaurant, his face was open, his eyes kind. There was no pity there, just understanding and something else. Admiration, maybe. You're easy to trust, she said simply. Michael smiled, still holding her hand. You know what I thought when I first saw you outside the restaurant last week? What's that? I thought, wow, she's gorgeous and she looks terrified. I really hope I don't mess this up. Alexandra laughed. I was terrified. First date in 2 years. 2 years? Michael's eyebrows rose. Their loss, my gain. The restaurant had grown quieter as the evening progressed. Looking around, Alexandra realized they were the last customers. The staff was discreetly cleaning up, trying not to disturb them. I think we're keeping your employees from going home, she said. Michael glanced at his watch and looked surprised. It's almost midnight. I had no idea. He signaled to Tony, who nodded and brought over a small bag. I asked Carlo to pack some cannoli for my kids. They'd never forgive me if I didn't bring them a treat. As they prepared to leave, several staff members came by to say goodnight, each of them warm and friendly to Alexandra. It was clear they adored Michael, and Alexandra could see why. He knew each of their names, asked about their families, thanked them personally for their work. Outside, the night was clear and cool. Stars peeked through breaks in the city lights overhead. Alexandra's driver wasn't due for another 15 minutes. Walk with me? Michael suggested. There's a little park across the street. Unless you're tired? Not at all, Alexandra said. She was surprised to realize it was true. Despite the late hour, she felt energized, alert, happy. They crossed the street together, Michael naturally falling into step beside her chair. The park was small, just a square of green space with some benches and flowering trees, now just shadows in the darkness. A path wound through it, well-paved and smooth, easy for Alexandra's wheelchair. I come here sometimes on my lunch break, Michael said as they moved along the path. It's peaceful even during the day. Good place to think. What do you think about? Alexandra asked. Michael considered this. The future, mostly. The kids growing up. The restaurant. What comes next? He looked at her. What about you? Where do you go to think? My office balcony, Alexandra answered. 20th floor overlooking the city. I had a special railing installed so I could see over it from the chair. Sounds beautiful. It is, she agreed. You should see it sometime. The invitation hung in the air between them, casual but meaningful. Another step forward. They stopped at a small fountain in the center of the park. Water trickled softly over stones, catching the light from nearby street lamps. I've had a wonderful time tonight, Alexandra said. Me too, Michael replied. He turned to face her fully, something hesitant in his expression. Alexandra, Before he could finish, Alexandra's phone buzzed. Her driver, texting that he had arrived. My ride's here, she said, disappointed at the interruption. Michael nodded, the moment broken. I'll walk you back. As they crossed back to the restaurant, Alexandra wondered what Michael had been about to say. At the curb, her car waited, the driver standing beside it. Can I call you tomorrow? Michael asked as the driver opened the car door. I'd like that, Alexandra said. She hesitated, then made a decision. She reached up, took Michael's hand, and pulled him down slightly. When he bent toward her, she kissed him, a soft, quick kiss that still managed to send warmth spreading through her chest. When she pulled back, Michael was smiling, his eyes bright even in the dim streetlight. Good night. Michael, she said. Good night, Alexandra. As her driver helped with her wheelchair, Alexandra watched Michael watching her. There was something in his gaze that made her feel both seen and wanted, not despite her wheelchair, but completely, wheelchair and all. The car pulled away from the curb, and Alexandra leaned back against the seat, touching her lips lightly with her fingertips. She hadn't kissed anyone since before her accident. Hadn't wanted to, hadn't felt that spark, that connection, until now. Her phone buzzed with a text message. Michael, just making sure you know, that was the best date I've had in 4 years. Alexandra smiled and typed back, mine too. By far. As the car drove through the quiet nighttime streets, Alexandra felt something she'd almost forgotten. A sense of possibility, of doors opening rather than closing, of a future that might contain more than just work and survival. For the first time in a long time, she found herself looking forward to tomorrow. You're seeing him again? Diane asked, leaning against the doorframe of Alexandra's office, a knowing smile on her face. That's the 3rd time this week. Alexandra looked up from her computer, unable to hide her own smile. It had been 3 weeks since her first date with Michael, and they'd seen each other almost every other day since then. Dinners, lunch breaks, even just coffee between meetings. We're just getting coffee, Alexandra said, closing her laptop. His restaurant is only a few blocks away and I need to get out of this office. Diane hummed, unconvinced. That's why you're reapplying your lipstick and checking your hair. For coffee, Alexandra laughed, caught. Okay, fine. I like him. Are you happy now? Ecstatic, Diane replied, her expression softening. It's good to see you like this, Alex. You seem lighter. Alexandra couldn't argue with that. She did feel lighter. The past few weeks had been unlike anything she'd experienced since her accident. Michael treated her so normally that sometimes she almost forgot about her wheelchair. Almost. But what made it special was that he didn't ignore it either. He was just practical about it, making small accommodations without fuss, asking questions when he needed to but never making her feel like her disability was the most interesting thing about her. Don't you have work to do? Alexandra asked, though her tone was playful. Those quarterly reports won't file themselves. Going, Diane said, pushing off from the doorframe. But just so you know, the whole office is talking about how the boss is finally smiling again. As Diane left, Alexandra checked her reflection in the small mirror she kept in her desk drawer. Her dark hair was loose today, falling in soft waves around her face. She'd worn a deep red blouse that she knew brought color to her cheeks. Was she trying too hard? Maybe. But for the first time in years, she cared how she looked for reasons beyond professional appearance. Her phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Outside your building. No rush. Alexandra gathered her purse and jacket, then wheeled herself out of her office. Her employees looked up as she passed, and she noticed a few knowing smiles. Was she that transparent? The elevator took her down to the lobby, and through the glass doors she could see Michael waiting outside, hands in his pockets, gazing up at the tall building. He looked good in simple jeans and a gray sweater, his hair slightly tousled by the autumn breeze. As she exited the building, he turned and smiled. That warm smile that never failed to make her heart beat a little faster. Hey, he said, leaning down to kiss her cheek. Busy day? Always, she replied. But I needed the break. Coffee sounds perfect. They headed toward a small cafe 2 blocks away, walking and rolling side by side. It was a beautiful fall day. Leaves turning golden and red, the air crisp but not cold. Alexandra had always loved autumn, the way the world seemed to transform overnight into a canvas of warm colors. So, Michael said as they waited at a crosswalk, I have a question for you. That sounds serious, Alexandra teased. Kind of is, he admitted. The light changed and they crossed the street together. The kids have been asking when they're going to meet you. Alexandra felt a flutter of nervousness. She'd known this was coming. Michael talked about his children constantly. Ben's soccer games, Lily's dance lessons, the funny things they said at breakfast. It was clear they were the center of his world. What have you told them about me? She asked carefully. Michael smiled. The truth. That you're smart and beautiful and run your own company. That you use a wheelchair to get around. That I really like spending time with you. Alexandra felt a rush of gratitude at his straightforward approach. And they're okay with the wheelchair part? Kids are usually better about that stuff than adults, Michael said. But yes, they're fine with it. Ben asked if your chair has flames painted on the sides like his friend's grandpa's. I told him probably not, but I didn't want to speak for you. Alexandra laughed. No flames, sadly. Just boring black. Major design flaw, Michael joked. We could fix that. They reached the cafe and found a table outside, enjoying the sunshine. After ordering, a latte for Alexandra, black coffee for Michael, they returned to the conversation. So what do you think? Michael asked. No pressure. I know meeting kids is a big step. Alexandra took a deep breath. It was a big step. She hadn't dated anyone seriously enough to meet their family since before her accident. What if the kids were uncomfortable around her? What if they asked questions she wasn't prepared to answer? But looking at Michael's open, honest face, she realized she wanted this. Wanted to know the 2 little people who meant everything to him. I'd love to meet them, she said finally. When were you thinking? Michael's face lit up. Really, that's great. I was thinking maybe this Saturday? We usually do a movie and pizza night. Very low pressure. You could join us if you're free? Saturday sounds perfect, Alexandra said. Surprised by how much she meant it, their coffee arrived, and they moved on to other topics. A difficult client Alexandra was dealing with. A new menu item Michael was considering for the restaurant. But Alexandra's mind kept drifting back to the upcoming meeting with Ben and Lily. It felt significant, crossing some invisible line from casual dating to something more. "You're thinking very loudly," Michael observed after a while. "Having second thoughts?" Alexandra shook her head. "Not second thoughts, just, I haven't done the, eat the kids thing before. It matters to me that they like me." Michael reached across the table and took her hand. "They'll love you. But even if they're shy at first, that's normal. They've only ever seen me with their mom. This is new territory for all of us." His honesty, as always, was reassuring. That was one of the things Alexandra had grown to appreciate most about Michael. He didn't pretend things were simpler than they were. He acknowledged challenges but never made them seem insurmountable. "Thank you," she said, squeezing his hand. "For what?" "For being real with me. No games, no pretending." Michael smiled, a soft smile that reached his eyes. "I'm too old and too busy for games. And you're too important." The words hung between them, simple but profound. Too important. In just 3 weeks, they'd become important to each other. It should have been frightening. The speed of it, the intensity. But somehow it wasn't. It felt right. They finished their coffee too quickly. Alexandra checked her watch with regret. "I have a meeting in 20 minutes. I should head back." Michael nodded, hiding his disappointment poorly. "I'll walk you." As they made their way back to Alexandra's office building, Michael's hand found hers, his fingers intertwining with hers naturally. It was these small gestures that kept surprising her, the casual touches that made her feel normal, desired, connected. Outside her building, they paused. The busy sidewalk flowed around them like a river around stones. "Saturday, then," Michael confirmed. "Around 5? I can text you my address." "Saturday at 5, Alexandra agreed. "Should I bring anything?" "Just yourself," Michael said. Then he grinned. Though Ben does love chocolate chip cookies and Lily is a big fan of anything strawberry, Alexandra laughed. "Noted." Michael leaned down and kissed her, a proper kiss this time, not just a peck on the cheek. Alexandra felt the now familiar warmth spread through her body, the pleasant flutter in her stomach. When they broke apart, she saw a few of her employees watching through the lobby windows, not even trying to hide their interest. "I think I'm going to be the subject of office gossip," she said, nodding toward the window. Michael glanced over and chuckled. "Worth it," he said, stealing one more quick kiss. "I'll call you tonight?" "I'll be waiting," Alexandra said. As she watched him walk away, Alexandra couldn't help smiling to herself. She had a date with Michael and his kids on Saturday, a family movie night. It should have terrified her, this step toward something serious, something real. Instead, she found herself looking forward to it with a mix of nervousness and excitement that felt a lot like hope. Saturday arrived both too quickly and not quickly enough. Alexandra spent far too long choosing her outfit, wanting to look nice but not too formal, approachable for the kids but still put together. She finally settled on jeans, a soft blue sweater, and small silver earrings. Casual but still making an effort, as her mother would have said. She'd also spent an embarrassing amount of time at a local bakery, selecting the perfect chocolate chip cookies for Ben and a small strawberry tart for Lily. The bakery owner had been amused but understanding, carefully packaging each treat in separate boxes with ribbon. Now, sitting in the car outside Michael's house, Alexandra felt her nerves return in full force. His home was in a quiet neighborhood just outside the city, a 2-story house with blue shutters and a wheelchair-accessible ramp alongside the front steps. The ramp made her smile. Of course, Michael would have thought of that. Taking a deep breath, she transferred from car to wheelchair, gathered the bakery boxes on her lap, and made her way up the ramp to the front door. Before she could even ring the bell, the door flew open to reveal a small girl with pigtails and Michael's green eyes. "Dad, she's here," Lily shouted over her shoulder, then turned back to Alexandra with an assessing gaze. "Your chair is cool. Can it go fast?" Alexandra couldn't help laughing. "No awkward first meeting here." "Pretty fast," she admitted. "But only when I'm not carrying cake boxes." Lily's eyes widened. "You brought cake?" "Lily, let Alexandra come inside before you start interrogating her." Michael appeared behind his daughter, looking slightly embarrassed but mostly amused. "Sorry about the ambush. Someone was watching out the window for the last 20 minutes. I wanted to see her first," Lily explained matter-of-factly, stepping back to allow Alexandra to enter. The house was warm and inviting. Hardwood floors, easier for wheelchairs than carpet, Alexandra noted gratefully. Walls painted in soft earth tones, and furniture that looked comfortable and well-loved rather than fancy. Photos lined the walls, mostly of the children at various ages. Alexandra caught a glimpse of a beautiful woman with Lily's smile in a few of the older pictures. Rachel, Michael's late wife. Ben. "Come meet Alexandra," Michael called. A lanky boy with Michael's messy hair appeared from what looked like the kitchen, a cautious expression on his face. He was taller than Alexandra had expected, all arms and legs in that way of boys on the edge of adolescence. "Hi," he said shyly. "Ben, this is Alexandra," Michael said, his hand resting lightly on his son's shoulder. "Alexandra, this is Ben, future soccer star and current holder of the household Minecraft championship title." Ben rolled his eyes at his father's introduction, but a small smile tugged at his lips. "Dad exaggerates. I'm only okay at soccer." "But you are the Minecraft champion?" Alexandra asked seriously. Ben's face lit up. "You play Minecraft?" "I've been known to build a decent fortress," Alexandra admitted. It was true. During her months of recovery after the accident, video games had been one of the few activities that could distract her from the pain and frustration. "Though I'm more of a creative mode player than survival." "Me too," Ben exclaimed, his shyness suddenly gone. "I built a whole city with working redstone elevators." "Impressive," Alexandra said genuinely. "I'd love to see it sometime." Ben nodded eagerly, then seemed to remember himself, stepping back a bit. "I brought treats," Alexandra said, holding up the bakery boxes. "I heard there might be some chocolate chip cookie fans in the house, Cow." "That's me," Ben said. "And a strawberry tart for Miss Lily," Alexandra added, handing the pink box to the little girl whose eyes grew wide. "Dad said strawberry is my favorite," Lily said, clearly pleased. "Did you remember that special just for me?" "I have an excellent memory for important information," Alexandra assured her. Michael watched the exchange with a soft smile. "Why don't we put those in the kitchen for after dinner? Pizza should be here any minute." They moved to the kitchen, a bright open space with a large island in the center and drawings stuck to the refrigerator with colorful magnets. Alexandra noticed immediately that everything was at a height she could reach from her chair, another one of Michael's thoughtful preparations. "Can I see how your chair works?" Ben asked suddenly. "Dad said it's like a really cool machine." "Ben," Michael started, looking concerned. "That might be—" "It's fine," Alexandra assured him. "I don't mind." She turned to Ben. "What would you like to know?" For the next 10 minutes, Alexandra found herself explaining the mechanics of her wheelchair to an extremely interested 8-year-old. Ben asked intelligent questions about the battery, the controls, and how fast it could go. Lily, not to be outdone, wanted to know if Alexandra could pop wheelies. She could, but rarely did. And if the wheels lit up, unfortunately, no. The doorbell rang, announcing the arrival of pizza, and Michael went to answer it. Alexandra found herself momentarily alone with the children. "Dad says you run a whole company," Lily said, climbing onto a stool at the island. "Like a boss?" "I do," Alexandra confirmed. "We make software, computer programs that help other businesses." "That's cool," Ben said. "My teacher says not many women run tech companies. She says it's important to have different kinds of people making technology." "Your teacher is very smart," Alexandra said, impressed. "Diversity makes everything better, especially technology." Michael returned with 2 large pizza boxes. "Hope everyone likes pepperoni and veggie supreme. Dad always gets veggie because he thinks we need healthy food with our junk food," Ben explained to Alexandra in a stage whisper. "Busted," Michael admitted with a laugh. "But the veggie supreme is actually really good." They ate in the kitchen, casual and comfortable, with Lily doing most of the talking, telling Alexandra about her dance class, her best friend Maya, and her collection of stuffed unicorns. Ben was quieter but would occasionally jump in with a comment or correction to his sister's stories. Michael mostly watched, his expression soft, jumping in only to gently referee when the siblings started talking over each other. Alexandra found herself relaxing into the family dynamic. It was chaotic in a cheerful way, warm and unpolished and real, so different from her own ordered, quiet life. After dinner and dessert, the cookies and tart were a huge hit. They moved to the living room for the promised movie night. The space was cozy with a large sectional sofa and several oversized pillows on the floor. A bookshelf filled one wall, and toys were neatly stored in baskets in the corner. A home where children actually lived and played. We each get to pick a movie, and then Dad chooses which one we watch, Ben explained the system to Alexandra. But we always get to watch the other ones next time. Very democratic, Alexandra approved. What about Alexandra? Does she get to pick too? Lily asked. Of course, Michael said. She's our guest. In the end, they watched Lily's Choice, an animated film about a brave princess that Alexandra had never seen before. The children settled on the floor with pillows while Michael and Alexandra sat on the sofa. As the movie began, Michael's arm slipped naturally around her shoulders, and Alexandra leaned into him, feeling a contentment she hadn't experienced in years. Halfway through the film, Lily abandoned her spot on the floor and climbed up next to Alexandra. Can I sit with you? She whispered. The floor is getting hard. Of course, Alexandra whispered back, shifting slightly to make room. By the time the credits rolled, Lily had fallen asleep, her head resting against Alexandra's arm. Ben was still awake but yawning widely. Bedtime, buddy, Michael said softly. Go brush your teeth. I'll carry your sister up. Ben nodded sleepily. Before heading upstairs, he paused in front of Alexandra. Will you come back again sometime, he asked. Maybe you could show me how to build better Minecraft houses. Alexandra felt her heart swell. I'd love that, Ben, anytime. The boy smiled shyly before heading upstairs. Michael carefully lifted Lily, who mumbled something in her sleep but didn't wake. I'll be right back, he whispered to Alexandra. Just need to tuck them in. While Michael was upstairs, Alexandra looked around the living room, taking in the details of this family's life. Photos on the mantel showed happier times with Rachel, alongside newer pictures of just Michael and the kids. A growth chart on the wall tracked Ben and Lily's heights over the years. Artwork, clearly made by small hands, was proudly displayed in simple frames. This was a home filled with love and memories. Alexandra felt both privileged to witness it and suddenly aware of her status as an outsider looking in. Could she ever truly be part of something like this? Did she want to be? The answer, surprising in its certainty, was yes. Michael returned a few minutes later, looking slightly tired but happy. Lily wanted me to tell you good night and that she likes your earrings, he reported, sitting down beside Alexandra. And Ben wanted to know if you could come to his soccer game next weekend. I'd love to, Alexandra said honestly. They're wonderful, Michael. You've done an amazing job with them. They're easy to love, Michael said simply. He took her hand, his thumb tracing small circles on her palm. Thank you for tonight, for being so good with them. Thank you for sharing them with me, Alexandra replied. It means a lot that you wanted me to meet them. Michael looked at her, his expression serious now. I don't introduce them to people I date casually, Alexandra. You should know that. The implication was clear. This wasn't casual for him. Alexandra felt her heart beat faster, a mix of fear and excitement coursing through her. It's not casual for me either, she admitted quietly. Michael leaned forward and kissed her. A kiss so gentle and full of promise that Alexandra felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. When they broke apart, Michael rested his forehead against hers. I'm falling for you, he whispered, hard and fast. And it terrifies me and thrills me at the same time. Alexandra could only nod, too full of emotion to speak. She understood perfectly. The same wonderful, terrifying feeling had been growing inside her for weeks. You don't have to say anything, Michael continued. I just wanted you to know where I stand. I'm all in, Alexandra. Whatever pace you need, whatever comes next, I'm here. Alexandra took a shaky breath. I'm falling for you too, she said softly. And for those amazing kids of yours. And yes, it's terrifying. Michael smiled, relief and joy lighting his face. Good terrifying? The best kind, Alexandra assured him, pulling him back for another kiss. As the quiet house wrapped around them, Alexandra felt something settling inside her, a piece falling into place that she hadn't known was missing. Here in this imperfect, beautiful family home, with this man who saw her completely, she had found something rare and precious. A beginning. Are you absolutely sure about this? Alexandra asked Diane for the third time, checking the calendar on her phone. The board meeting can't be rescheduled? For the last time, no, Diane replied, leaning against Alexandra's office doorway. The investors are flying in from Tokyo specifically for this meeting. It's been planned for months. Alexandra sighed heavily, staring out the window of her 20th floor office. It was a beautiful spring day, the kind that felt like a gift after a long winter. The trees in the park below were dotted with fresh green leaves, and people strolled through wearing short sleeves for the first time this year. It was also the day of Ben's championship soccer game, the one he'd been talking about for weeks, the one she'd promised to attend. "I could try to move the meeting earlier," Diane suggested, her voice softening. "Maybe we could finish by 3 and you'd only miss the first half of the game." Alexandra shook her head. "No, that won't work. The Japanese investors will be jet-lagged enough as it is." She rubbed her temples, feeling the tension of trying to balance her professional responsibilities with her growing role in Michael's family. "I'll just have to miss it. Ben will understand," but even as she said it, Alexandra remembered the excitement in Ben's eyes when he'd told her about reaching the finals, how his team had never gotten this far before, how he'd been made team captain. She'd been dating Michael for almost 6 months now, spending more and more time with him and the children. Ben and Lily had begun to count on her presence at their important events, and she took that responsibility seriously. "He's only 9, Diane said gently, as if reading her thoughts. "There will be other games." "I know," Alexandra replied. "But this one matters to him." The decision weighed on her throughout the day. By evening, she found herself at Michael's house for their usual Friday night dinner, her stomach in knots. How was she going to tell Ben? The house was chaotic, as always on Fridays. Lily was dancing around the kitchen in her ballet outfit from her afternoon class. Michael was stirring something that smelled amazing on the stove, and Ben was setting the table, carefully placing each fork and knife in the right position. "Alexandra," Lily cried when she wheeled in, rushing over for a hug. At 7, Lily had none of her brother's occasional shyness. From day one, she had adopted Alexandra completely, treating her with the same easy affection she showed her father. "Nice pirouette," Alexandra said, returning the hug. "You're getting really good," Lily beamed. "Ms. Kim says I might get to be in the recital next month. You'll come, right?" "Wouldn't miss it," Alexandra promised, feeling another pang of guilt about Ben's game. Michael turned from the stove, wiping his hands on a dish towel before leaning down to kiss her. "Hey, you," he said softly. "Tough day?" Alexandra nodded. Michael could always tell when something was bothering her. Ben finished with the table and approached, less exuberant than his sister, but with a genuine smile. "Hi, Alexandra. Dad's making his famous lasagna." "World famous," Michael corrected with a grin. "More like neighborhood famous," Ben said, rolling his eyes but smiling. "Either way, it smells amazing," Alexandra said. "Need any help?" "Nope, just about done," Michael replied. "Ben, can you grab the salad from the fridge?" As they settled around the table, the conversation flowed easily, as it always did. Lily chattered about ballet and her friend Maya's new puppy. Michael talked about a food critic who had visited the restaurant that afternoon. And Ben couldn't stop talking about tomorrow's game. "Coach says if we win, we'll be the first team from our school to ever win the regional championship," he said, his eyes bright with excitement. "And since I'm captain, I'd get to hold the trophy first." Alexandra felt her heart sink. "Ben, about the game tomorrow." The boy looked up, a forkful of lasagna halfway to his mouth. "Yeah? Alexandra took a deep breath. "I'm so sorry, but I'm not going to be able to make it. We have Japanese investors flying in for an important meeting, and I can't reschedule." Ben's face fell, the disappointment so clear it hurt to see. "Oh," he said quietly, looking down at his plate. "That's okay. I understand." But it was obvious he didn't understand, not really. How could he? He was 9 years old, and in his world, soccer championships were more important than board meetings. "I'm really, really sorry," Alexandra said, reaching across the table to touch his hand. "I wish I could be there. I'll make it up to you, I promise." Ben nodded, still not meeting her eyes. "It's fine. You have to work. Dad always says work is important." Michael gave his son a concerned look before turning to Alexandra. "Is there any way you could come for even part of it? The game starts at 4. The meeting is scheduled until 5, and these investors never finish early," Alexandra explained. "By the time I got there, it would be over." An uncomfortable silence fell over the table, broken only by the scrape of forks against plates. Even Lily seemed to sense the tension, her usual chatter subdued. After dinner, Ben excused himself quickly, saying he needed to get his uniform ready for tomorrow. Alexandra watched him go, feeling like the worst person in the world. He'll be all right, Michael said softly as they cleared the table. He knows you care, does he? Alexandra asked. Because right now it probably looks like I care more about my company than about him. Michael shook his head. That's not fair to yourself. You have responsibilities. Ben understands that, as much as any kid can. But the look of disappointment on Ben's face haunted Alexandra throughout the evening and into the night. Back at her apartment, she tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Around 2 a.m., she sat up in bed, suddenly struck by an idea. It was crazy, probably impossible, but what if? She grabbed her phone and sent a text to Diane, knowing her assistant would see it first thing in the morning. Need to talk ASAP. Have an idea about tomorrow. The next morning found Alexandra in her office at 7 a.m., frantically making calls. Diane arrived at 7:30, took one look at her boss, and immediately made coffee. You look like you haven't slept, she observed, placing a steaming mug on Alexandra's desk. I haven't really, Alexandra admitted. Listen, I need your help with something complicated. For the next hour, they worked together, rearranging schedules, making calls to Tokyo, and setting up equipment. By 9 a.m., Alexandra sat back in her wheelchair, exhausted but satisfied. It might actually work, Diane said, looking surprised. Though you're going to owe me big time for making me call Mr. Tanaka at midnight his time. Add it to my tab, Alexandra said with a tired smile. Now we just have to hope the tech cooperates. The day passed in a blur of preparations. At 3 p.m., the Japanese investors arrived, formal in their dark suits but clearly impressed by the offices and the company's latest software demonstrations. Alexandra led the meeting with practiced ease, guiding them through presentations and answering questions with the confidence that had built her company from nothing. At precisely 3:55 p.m., Alexandra nodded to Diane, who was positioned by the door. Diane slipped out, returning moments later with a sleek laptop. Gentlemen, Alexandra addressed the investors. I hope you'll forgive a slight departure from our agenda. My assistant will continue the financial projections presentation while I attend to an urgent personal matter. I'll remain in the room and available for questions. Mr. Tanaka, the lead investor, looked momentarily confused but nodded politely. Of course, Ms. Torres, please proceed. Diane set up the laptop in front of Alexandra, positioning it so only she could see the screen. As the presentation continued, Alexandra connected to the live stream that Michael had set up at the soccer field. The image was a bit grainy, but she could clearly see the field, the bleachers filled with parents and supporters and the two teams warming up. The camera zoomed in, and there was Ben looking both nervous and determined in his blue team uniform, the captain's armband visible on his sleeve. Alexandra smiled, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. She might not be there in person, but she would watch every minute of that game, board meeting or not. For the next hour, Alexandra performed a remarkable juggling act, listening to the financial presentation, answering investor questions, and watching Ben's game simultaneously. She saw him make a brilliant pass in the first half, setting up his team's first goal. She saw him take a hard fall but get back up immediately, brushing off dirt from his knees, and she saw his face intense with concentration as he played his heart out. The investors, to their credit, either didn't notice her divided attention or chose not to mention it. The meeting proceeded smoothly, wrapping up just as the soccer game entered its final minutes, with the score tied 2-2. As the investors gathered their materials, prepared to head to dinner at a restaurant Alexandra had recommended, Mr. Tanaka paused beside her desk. Important game, he asked, nodding toward the laptop where Ben could be seen huddled with his team during a timeout. Alexandra looked up, surprised. Mike, I'm my partner's son, she said. Championship match, Mr. Tanaka smiled, his formal demeanor softening. My grandson plays soccer. 9 years old. Very serious about it. He glanced at his watch. We can delay dinner by 30 minutes. You should see the end of the game. Alexandra blinked, touched by the unexpected understanding. Thank you, Mr. Tanaka. That's very kind. As the investors filed out, promising to meet her at the restaurant shortly, Alexandra turned her full attention to the screen. The final minutes of the game were pure tension. Ben's team was pushing hard for a winning goal, and with just 1 minute left on the clock, a teammate passed the ball to Ben, who found himself with a clear shot at the goal. Alexandra held her breath, her hands gripping the arms of her wheelchair tightly. Ben took the shot, a perfect curving kick that sailed past the goalkeeper's outstretched hands and into the net. The crowd erupted. Parents leapt to their feet, cheering. Ben's teammates mobbed him, jumping and hugging in a pile of blue uniforms. And Ben at the bottom of the pile was beaming with pure joy. Alexandra found herself cheering alone in her office, tears streaming down her face. They'd done it. Ben had done it. As the celebration continued on screen, her phone buzzed with a text from Michael. He did it. Wish you could have seen it. We'll call you later. Alexandra smiled through her tears, typing back. I did see it. Tell Ben I'm so proud of him. Best goal ever. Michael's reply came seconds later. Before she could respond, the video feed shifted. Michael's face appeared close to the camera. Alexandra? Can you see me? Are you watching? Yes, she called, even though he couldn't hear her. Michael's face broke into a grin. He turned the camera and suddenly Ben was there, sweaty and dirt-streaked and happier than Alexandra had ever seen him. Ben, Michael said. Alexandra watched the whole game. She saw everything. Your pass, your goal, all of it. Ben's face lit up with disbelief and joy. Really? She saw me score? Michael nodded, and Ben leaned closer to the camera as if trying to see through it to Alexandra on the other side. Alexandra? Did you really watch? Yes, sweetheart, Alexandra whispered, even though he couldn't hear her. I wouldn't have missed it for the world. Michael seemed to understand what she would be saying. She says she saw everything, he told Ben. She's so proud of you. Ben smiled, a full, unguarded smile that made Alexandra's heart swell. Tell her thanks, he said. Tell her I'm glad she got to see it. The camera turned back to Michael. I don't know how you managed this, he said, but thank you. It means everything to him. To us. Alexandra nodded, too emotional to speak even though Michael couldn't see her. On the screen, she could see other parents calling for Michael and Ben, the trophy being brought out for presentations. We have to go, Michael said. Trophy ceremony. But we'll see you tonight? Celebration dinner? Alexandra checked the time. If she hurried through dinner with the investors, she could make it to Michael's by 8. I'll be there, she typed. Save me some cake. As the video feed ended, Alexandra sat back in her chair, wiping away tears. She had board meetings every quarter, Japanese investors every year, but Ben would only score his first championship-winning goal once, and she had seen it despite everything. It wasn't perfect. She hadn't been there to hug him or cheer from the bleachers. But she had found a way to be present, to show him that he mattered to her, that his important moments were her important moments too. And somehow, that felt like its own kind of victory. Hours later, Alexandra finally arrived at Michael's house, exhausted but happy. The dinner with the investors had gone well, the contract was virtually secured, and Mr. Tanaka had even asked to see a photo of the young soccer star before they parted. The house was lit up, sounds of celebration spilling out into the evening air. Alexandra could hear music and laughter as she approached the front door. Before she could knock, the door flew open and Ben stood there, still in his uniform, the dirt and grass stains now badges of honor. Alexandra, he cried, genuine delight in his voice. Without hesitation, he rushed forward and wrapped his arms around her in a fierce hug, the first time he had ever initiated such physical affection with her. Dad showed me how you watched on his phone. That was so cool. Alexandra hugged him back, fighting tears again. I'm so proud of you, Ben. That goal was amazing. Ben pulled back, his face serious suddenly. You really saw it? The whole game? Every minute, Alexandra assured him. I was in my meeting, but I had a special setup so I could watch. I saw you make that great pass in the first half, and I definitely saw that beautiful winning goal. Ben beamed, reaching into his pocket. Look, he said, pulling out a small golden medal on a blue ribbon. They gave one to each player. And we got a trophy too, it's huge. Ben, let Alexandra come inside. Michael's voice called from within. She's probably exhausted. Ben stepped back, suddenly remembering his manners. Sorry, come in. We have pizza and cake. The living room had been transformed into Celebration Central. Blue balloons decorated the walls. A Congratulations Champions banner hung across the doorway, and the promised trophy, indeed impressively large, sat in the center of the coffee table. Lily was dancing around it wearing what appeared to be a homemade cheerleader outfit. Michael emerged from the kitchen, a soft smile on his face. Hey, superstar, he said, leaning down to kiss Alexandra. You made it. Wouldn't miss the celebration, Alexandra replied. Though I see it's well underway. Dad said we had to wait for cake until you got here, Lily announced, twirling to a stop beside Alexandra's wheelchair. It's chocolate with blue frosting. Team colors. Perfect choice, Alexandra said. I'm starving. Those business dinners never have enough food. As Michael went to get the cake, Ben settled on the sofa across from Alexandra, the medal still clutched in his hand. Dad said you were in a really important meeting, he said. With people from Japan. Alexandra nodded. Very important investors, but your game was important too. Ben looked down at his medal, then back at Alexandra. Thanks for watching, he said simply. It made it better knowing you saw it. The word struck Alexandra deep in her chest. Made it better. Isn't that what we all want to do for the people we care about? Make the good times better, the hard times easier? Ben, she said softly, I want you to know something. Work is important to me. My company matters. But you and Lily and your dad, you matter more. I'm still learning how to balance everything, but I promise I'll always try to be there for the big moments. Ben nodded solemnly. Dad says that's what family does. They show up, family. The word hung in the air, filled with meaning. Was that what they were becoming? A family? Before Alexandra could respond, Michael returned with the cake. Lily dancing around him, chanting, "Cake, cake, cake." Speech from the captain before we cut it, Michael announced, setting the cake on the coffee table. It was indeed chocolate with blue frosting with Champion Ben, written across the top in slightly wobbly white letters, clearly Michael's handiwork. Ben stood up, suddenly shy with everyone looking at him. Thanks for coming to my game, Dad and Lily. And thanks for watching, Alexandra. And thanks to my team for playing really good. And, he paused, then added with a grin, thanks to my awesome self for scoring the winning goal. Everyone laughed, the moment of solemnity broken. As Michael cut the cake and handed out slices, Alexandra watched the three of them, Michael's proud smile, Lily's enthusiastic bouncing, Ben's quiet satisfaction. They had welcomed her into their celebration, into their home, into their lives, and sitting there in her wheelchair, surrounded by blue balloons and the sounds of laughter, Alexandra realized something profound. For years after her accident, she had focused on what she had lost, the ability to walk, to run, to move through the world as she once had. But in doing so, she had nearly missed seeing what she could still gain. A family, a place to belong, love that saw beyond wheelchairs and limitations to the person inside. Michael caught her eye across the room and smiled, that special smile he seemed to reserve just for her. And Alexandra smiled back, her heart full to bursting. Some victories weren't marked with trophies or medals. Some were quieter, more personal, like finding a way to be at a soccer game while sitting in a board meeting, like a 9-year-old boy rushing to hug her without hesitation or awkwardness, like the feeling of belonging that wrapped around her now, as tangible as the walls of this home. As Ben regaled them with a play-by-play of his winning goal, complete with sound effects and dramatic reenactment, Alexandra made a decision. She would find a better balance. She would be present for more games, more recitals, more ordinary evenings like this one, because these people, this feeling, was worth rearranging board meetings for, worth everything, really. The trophy gleamed on the table, catching the light. A symbol of victory, yes, but to Alexandra, the real victory was happening around it, in the laughter, in the chocolate-smeared smiles, in the feeling of finding her place in this beautiful, imperfect family. The summer sun beat down on the sandy beach, casting a golden glow over everything it touched. Alexandra sat in her regular wheelchair under a large umbrella, watching Michael and the kids splashing in the gentle waves of the ocean. This weekend getaway had been Michael's idea, a celebration of their 1-year anniversary as a couple. 1 year. Alexandra could hardly believe it had been that long since their first dinner together. So much had changed in that time. Her company had grown, adding 20 new employees and a second office across town. Ben had started middle school, excelling in both academics and soccer. Lily had lost 2 teeth and developed a passion for marine biology after a school field trip to the aquarium. And Michael had expanded his restaurant, opening a second location in the upscale part of downtown. But the most significant changes weren't external. They were the subtle shifts in Alexandra's heart, in her sense of belonging. Somewhere along the way, Michael's house had become more home to her than her own apartment. Somewhere along the way, his children had become part of her life in ways she never could have imagined. Somewhere along the way, she had fallen deeply, irrevocably in love. "Alexandra, watch me!" Lily called from the water's edge, proceeding to perform what she clearly believed was an impressive cartwheel, but which looked more like a lopsided tumble through the shallow surf. "Amazing." Alexandra called back, clapping. 10 out of 10. Lily beamed, then ran back into the waves where Michael and Ben were tossing a frisbee back and forth. At 10, Ben had shot up several inches this year, all gangly limbs and growing confidence. He caught the frisbee his father threw, then turned and waved to Alexandra. "Come in," he shouted. "The water feels great." Alexandra shook her head, smiling. "Maybe later," she called back. It wasn't that she didn't want to join them, but getting into the ocean in her wheelchair was complicated, and she was enjoying watching them from her shady spot. Their joy was contagious, even from a distance. Michael said something to the kids, then jogged up the beach toward her, water droplets glistening on his tanned skin. At 42, he was more handsome than ever, the slight touches of gray at his temples only adding to his appeal. "You sure you don't want to come in?" he asked, dropping onto the beach blanket beside her wheelchair. "The water's perfect. I'm perfect right here," Alexandra replied. "But you three look like you're having fun." Michael smiled, reaching for a bottle of water from the cooler. "We are, but we'd have more fun with you." Alexandra glanced down at her wheelchair, a familiar pang of frustration washing over her. "The regular chair can't go on the sand, and even if I use the beach wheelchair, getting into the water is such a production." Michael took a long drink, then looked at her thoughtfully. "You know, you don't have to do everything independently all the time. Sometimes it's okay to let people help." Alexandra sighed. "I know, it's just, I've worked so hard to be self-sufficient, to not need help with everyday things." "I understand that," Michael said gently, "and I respect it. But letting someone help you isn't the same as being dependent. It's just accepting love in action." She looked at him, this man who had never once made her feel less capable, less whole because of her wheelchair. "When did you get so wise?" she teased. "I've always been wise." "You're just finally starting to notice," he replied with a grin. Before Alexandra could respond, Ben and Lily came running up from the water. "Dad." "Alexandra, can we get ice cream?" Lily asked, dripping seawater onto the blanket. "There's a stand right over there." She pointed down the beach to where a small white cart was surrounded by a cluster of people. "Dry off first," Michael said, tossing each of them a towel. "Then we can all go." As the kids vigorously toweled themselves, Ben looked at Alexandra. "Will you come with us this time?" Alexandra hesitated, eyeing the deep sand between their spot and the ice cream stand. Her regular wheelchair would sink immediately. "I can push the beach wheelchair," Ben offered, as if reading her thoughts. "I'm strong enough now." The beach wheelchair was a special chair Michael had bought last summer, with large, balloon-like wheels designed to roll over sand. Alexandra had used it a few times but always felt self-conscious in it, more obviously disabled than in her sleek everyday chair. Something in Ben's expression, though, that mixture of hopefulness and earnestness, made her nod. "Okay, let's do it." Michael helped her transfer from her regular chair to the beach wheelchair, a process she'd grown more comfortable with over the months. His hands were strong and sure, his movements respectful of her body and her dignity. Once she was settled, Ben took up position behind the chair, his hands gripping the handles with determination. "Don't tip her over," Michael warned, only half joking. "Dad, I'm not a baby," Ben protested. "I'm almost 11. "That's right," Alexandra agreed, reaching back to pat Ben's hand. "I trust my driver completely." The trip to the ice cream stand was bumpy but fun. Ben pushed with careful concentration, navigating around towels and sandcastles. Lily danced alongside them, still full of energy despite hours in the sun and surf, and Michael walked beside Alexandra, his hand occasionally brushing against hers. At the ice cream stand, they joined the short line of beachgoers. Alexandra was conscious of a few curious glances at her wheelchair, but they didn't bother her as much as they once would have. Being with Michael and the kids somehow made her feel less exposed, less defined by the chair. "What flavor are you getting?" Lily asked, peering at the menu board. "Definitely chocolate," Ben replied. "Or maybe cookie dough." "I'm getting strawberry," Lily declared. "What about you, Alexandra?" "Mint chocolate chip," Alexandra answered without hesitation. It's the superior ice cream flavor. Mint tastes like toothpaste, Ben said, making a face. Your taste buds are clearly underdeveloped, Alexandra teased. What about you, Dad? Lily asked. Michael pretended to consider deeply. I think vanilla. All three of them groaned in unison. Vanilla? Ben exclaimed. That's so boring. It's a classic, Michael defended himself. Timeless. Elegant in its simplicity. It's white ice cream, Lily stated flatly. Michael laughed, ruffling his daughter's still damp hair. Fine, fine. I'll get coffee flavor instead. Marginally less boring, Alexandra commented with a smile. When they reached the front of the line, the vendor, a teenage boy with Sue and bleached hair, greeted them cheerfully. What'll it be, folks? They ordered their cones. Mint chocolate chip for Alexandra, coffee for Michael, chocolate for Ben, and strawberry for Lily, and found a nearby bench to enjoy them. The bench was positioned at the edge of the boardwalk, with a perfect view of the ocean stretching out before them, a vast expanse of blue meeting the sky at the horizon. This is nice, Michael said softly, his shoulder pressed against Alexandra's. All of us together, Alexandra nodded, watching Ben and Lily, who had wandered a few feet away to examine a large seashell someone had discarded. It is nice. I've been thinking, Michael continued, his voice taking on a more serious tone. About the future. Alexandra turned to look at him, something in his voice catching her attention. Oh, this past year has been everything, Michael said, meeting her eyes. Watching you with the kids, seeing how much they love you, how much I love you. It's made me realize what I want our tomorrow to look like. Alexandra's heart began to beat faster. Was he saying what she thought he was saying? Michael, she began, but he shook his head. Let me finish before I lose my nerve, he said with a small smile. Alexandra, I know we've talked about the future in general terms, about moving in together eventually, about what that might look like, but I want more than that. He took a deep breath. I want forever with you. Alexandra felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. I want that too, she whispered. Michael reached into the pocket of his swim trunks and pulled out a small box. It was slightly damp from his earlier swim. The velvet covering darkened with seawater. I had this whole plan, he said, looking slightly embarrassed. Romantic dinner, sunset, the works. But sitting here with you watching the kids, it just feels right to ask you now. In this ordinary, perfect moment, he opened the box, revealing a simple but beautiful ring, a single diamond set in a band of white gold that caught the sunlight and threw tiny rainbows onto Alexandra's lap. Alexandra Torres, Michael said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. Will you marry me? Will you be my wife, Ben and Lily's stepmom? Part of our family officially and forever? Alexandra stared at the ring, then at Michael's face. This man who had never seen her wheelchair as a barrier, who had loved her completely and without reservation, who had shown her that life could still be full of joy and possibility. Yes, she said, her voice breaking with emotion. Yes, absolutely, yes. Michael's face broke into a radiant smile as he slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had always been meant to be there. He leaned forward and kissed her, a kiss full of promise and future and love. Dad? Alexandra? Ben's voice interrupted them. He and Lily had returned, both looking confused at the scene before them. What's happening? Michael turned to his children, his face glowing with happiness. I just asked Alexandra to marry me, he said, and she said yes. There was a moment of silence as the children processed this information. Then Lily let out a high-pitched squeal of delight and threw herself at Alexandra, nearly toppling both of them off the bench. Yes, 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 she chanted, hugging Alexandra fiercely. You're going to be my mom. Alexandra hugged her back, her heart so full she thought it might burst. Over Lily's head she looked at Ben, who had remained standing a few feet away, his expression unreadable. Ben, she said softly, how do you feel about this? The boy was quiet for a moment, his eyes moving from his father to Alexandra, then down to the ring on her finger. When he looked up again, there was the beginning of a smile on his face. Does this mean you'll be at all my games? He asked. For real? Not just on a screen? Alexandra nodded, tears flowing freely now. As many as I possibly can be, she promised. Ben's smile widened. And you'll move into our house? All the time, not just on weekends? That's the plan, Michael confirmed. And we can build that ramp in the backyard? The one we talked about so Alexandra can get to the garden easier? Absolutely, Michael said. Whatever we need to do to make the house work for all of us. Ben seemed to consider this information, then nodded decisively. Then I think it's a good idea, he declared. He moved forward and, in a gesture that made Alexandra's heart swell, wrapped his arms around her in a hug. I'm glad you're going to be in our family for real, he whispered. Me too, Alexandra whispered back, holding him close. So glad. As Ben pulled away, slightly embarrassed by his show of emotion, Lily began to dance around them, still chanting, Alexandra's going to be our mom. Alexandra's going to be our mom. Stepmom, Ben corrected her. Mom is still mom, but Alexandra will be our stepmom. Alexandra looked at Michael, who was watching his children with a mixture of joy and tender sadness. They had never hidden Rachel's memory, never pretended she hadn't existed or hadn't been loved. Photos of her still hung in the house, and the children spoke of her often. Alexandra had never tried to replace her, had only tried to create her own relationship with Ben and Lily, built on its own foundation. Is that okay? She asked Michael quietly. That they still think of Rachel as mom? Michael took her hand, squeezing it gently. It's more than okay, he said. It's perfect. Rachel gave them life, loved them for the years she had with them. You're giving them future, loving them for all the years to come. There's room in their hearts for both of you. A crowd had gathered nearby, having witnessed the proposal. Now they broke into spontaneous applause, smiling at the obvious happiness of the small family. Alexandra blushed, unused to being the center of so much attention, but Michael stood and took a small bow, making everyone laugh. Come on, he said, helping Alexandra back into the beach wheelchair. Let's go back to our spot. I think this calls for the special bottle of champagne I packed. And the juice boxes for the kids, he added with a wink. As Ben once again took up position behind the wheelchair, pushing her through the sand with careful determination, Alexandra looked out at the ocean, at the endless horizon. For so long after her accident, she had seen only limitations, only closed doors. She had built her company partly as a fortress, a place where her mind mattered more than her mobility. But Michael and his children had shown her another way of seeing. They had opened doors she thought were forever shut, had invited her into a life full of mess and noise and joy. They had seen her, really seen her, wheelchair and all. Ben pushed the chair over a particularly bumpy stretch of sand, and Alexandra reached back to steady herself on his arm. You're getting really strong, she told him. Must be all that soccer. He grinned, pride evident in his face. Coach says I might make the elite team next year if I keep practicing. Then we'll make sure you keep practicing, Alexandra said. Maybe we can set up a better practice area in the backyard. The current one is a bit small. Really? Ben's face lit up. Dad said we didn't have enough room. Well, Alexandra said thoughtfully, if we redesign the garden a bit, move the shed to the other side, I think we could make it work. We'll draw up some plans when we get home. Cool, Ben exclaimed. Home. The word felt right in a way it never had before. Not her apartment, not Michael's house. Home. A place they would create together, adapting and changing to fit all their needs. Back at their beach spot, Michael unpacked the champagne and 4 plastic cups, 2 for the adults, 2 for the children's apple juice. When everyone had a drink, he raised his cup in a toast. To our family, he said simply. All of us. Together. To our family, everyone echoed, even Lily, who had to be reminded not to gulp her juice in her excitement. As the afternoon sun began its slow descent toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the sand, Alexandra looked at the 3 people around her, Michael with his kind eyes and steady heart, Ben with his quiet determination and growing confidence, Lily with her boundless energy and open affection, and she knew with absolute certainty that this was where she belonged, not despite her wheelchair, but with it, not as a lesser version of her Orm herself, but as exactly who she was meant to be, a CEO, a partner, a soon-to-be stepmother. A woman who had found her way back to joy through the unexpected door of a blind date that had turned into so much more. Michael caught her eye and smiled, that special smile that still made her heart skip a beat. And Alexandra smiled back, holding up her hand so the engagement ring caught the sunlight. What are you thinking? he asked. Alexandra looked at the ring, at the children building a sandcastle nearby, at the ocean stretching endlessly before them. And she knew exactly what she was thinking. I'm thinking that sometimes the most unexpected journeys lead to exactly where we're supposed to be. Michael nodded, understanding in his eyes. And where are you supposed to be? He asked softly. Alexandra reached for his hand, twining her fingers with his. Right here, she said. With you, with them. With us? The beach was beginning to clear as families packed up their belongings, shaking out towels and collecting discarded toys. But the four of them remained, savoring the moment in no hurry to leave. There would be time later to call friends and family with their news. Time to plan a wedding and merge two households. Time to face whatever challenges might come. For now, it was enough to sit together on this beach, watching the waves roll in and out, constant as a heartbeat. It was enough to know that tomorrow and all the tomorrows after, they would face together. As the first stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Lily leaned against Alexandra's wheelchair, yawning widely. Can we come back to this beach after you and Dad get married? She asked. Like every year? Alexandra looked at Michael, who nodded, his eyes full of love. I think that's a wonderful idea, she said, smoothing Lily's salt-tangled hair. A new family tradition. Our first one, Ben added. Unexpectedly sentimental. The first of many, Michael promised. As they finally began to pack up their belongings, preparing for the drive back to the beach house they'd rented for the weekend, Alexandra looked once more at the ocean. The water reflected the last rays of the setting sun, turning golden and pink and purple all at once. Beautiful, ever-changing and constant like love itself. Michael helped her transfer from the beach wheelchair back to her regular chair, and together they made their way across the boardwalk to the parking lot. Ben and Lily running ahead, their energy seemingly inexhaustible despite the long day. Happy? Michael asked, walking beside her. Alexandra thought about the question. Happy seemed too small a word for what she felt. This profound sense of rightness, of belonging, of coming home after a long journey. More than happy, she said finally. Astounded, grateful, in love. Michael smiled, that smile she had first fallen for a year ago, the one that reached his eyes and warmed her from the inside out. Me too, he said simply. And as they reached the car, the children already buckled into the back seat, Alexandra knew that whatever came next, wedding plans or work challenges, household adjustments or family dynamics, they would face it together. Not as broken people desperately seeking wholeness, but as whole people choosing to build something beautiful together. The journey from that first blind date to this moment had been unexpected, filled with surprises and challenges and joy, and the journey ahead would be no different. But now she knew something she hadn't known before. Sometimes the best journeys weren't about the destination at all, but about who traveled beside you along the way. And looking at Michael as he carefully folded her wheelchair and stored it in the trunk, at Ben and Lily singing along to the radio in the back seat, Alexandra knew she had found the perfect traveling companions for whatever road lay ahead.